We are live. Got to get the Facebook groups in here. There's a one. There's a two. All right. Gotta wait till we get a couple green check marks in here. Hope everybody's having a wonderful morning. There's one. There's two. Welcome into another episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am your host today, Eric Trickle, and joining me is Dylan Von Arx, only temporarily. Nick is having some other issues going on right now, but he should be back here in shortly with us and able to take over the show. How are you doing on this fine Monday morning, Dylan? And for the first time, no Broncos football or any football really on yesterday for us to watch.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing, honestly. Especially with the magical run the Broncos had this season to, just fall short of the Super Bowl playing this week, 10 years from when they won the Super Bowl last in 2015. So it's a little bittersweet, but we gotta keep covering the Broncos and what's going on with their eyes towards the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I said no football, and I had to specify on Sunday because Saturday was the Senior Bowl, which was it was a game. And I say that because at one point, one of the offensive linemen literally picked up the running back out of Arkansas, Mike Washington Jr., and tried to carry the running back who's still running. You know, it's like that old in like cartoons where they pick up the person, their feet still running. It just reminded me of that as they're doing it. I mean, it was into a pile and everything like that. Didn't score the touchdown. And then not long after that, we had a running back trying to secure a handoff. It popped out from behind as he's like trying to tuck it away. Popped out from underneath his arm. Defensive lineman picked up, passed it off to another defensive lineman, who then went to pass it off to another player. When the quarterback came in, knocked it down. It was just like a comedy of errors for maybe like 5 minutes of game time, I would say, is probably when this all happened. But it was a good Senior Bowl game, and I know that one of your guys, Jaden Ott, was there, and he actually looked really good. A lot of the running backs did. Jaden Ott, Kalen Black, and then I'm trying to think of one of the other guys who really stood out. I know there's a lot of fans of Mike Washington Jr. I know Nick's a fan of him, but he was fine, but man, when he was trying to bust it outside or when he broke through tackle, there just wasn't much burst there. Like he just very clearly doesn't have that speed to get away. So he's a very much take what you get. But I don't know if you watched any of the Senior Bowl, but it ended up being a good game there at the end. But the end of the first half, where those couple sequences happened, was a little bit funny, I guess, would be the way to put it.
Yeah, that can happen when you get a bunch of players together while being coached up together for a couple of days. It's not exactly going to be a cohesive unit, and I'm very glad you brought up Jaden Ott. He's up in my neck of the woods, Northern California, Berkeley, and although I never got to watch him in a game, I stayed up many a night watching him in his season a couple of years ago where he just absolutely dominated. I'm glad to see him get some love after the injury kind of stymied him his last year at Cal, and then didn't really get much production at all in Oklahoma. So nice to see that. But yeah, I didn't get to watch much of the game, but I did see some cut-ups and obviously looked up your analysis on it, and you guys should do so as well at milehighhuddle.com.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun watching the game. It was a lot of fun watching over the practices, knowing people who are there and that film all the stuff, reps and everything, and not being just stuck with what NFL is or NFL network shows. And then the Shrine Bowl as well. That game was last Tuesday, though. That's always nice. I've got online credentials for that, so I get access to all of that. And been busy, but I'm glad it's over. Now I don't have to watch any games anymore. And in the draft process, next up is the scouting combine, which can't wait for that. But before we continue here, we're going to say hello to some people in the chat. Hopefully by the time we're done with that, Nick will be back and ready. No offense to you, Dylan. But we have Denver Luke coming in saying good morning, Eric and Nick, with some coffee emojis. Keith coming in saying good morning, Nick and Eric and all of Broncos country. Heard Webb interviewed for the offensive coordinator job. When will we know if he got the job? Yeah, they did the interview yesterday. Who was the third interview after they interviewed Ronald Curry, who's currently with the Buffalo Bills, and Brian Johnson, who was with the Commanders or is with the Commanders. I can't remember exactly what his status is with them is. And then Davis Webb yesterday, who's been the favorite. Everybody's been expecting Davis Webb to become the new offensive coordinator. I don't know when exactly or when for sure we'll hear about it. I would not be surprised one bit if it came out some point today.
Yeah, and it should be an interesting hire. Obviously, other teams have been super high on Davis Webb for offensive coordinator jobs that involve play calling, as long as with some head coaching jobs, which was interesting to me because he hasn't called plays this season beyond, was it the last preseason game he
Yeah.
got some stuff in. So obviously a bright mind. Sean Payton thinks the world of him. He called his driver after his initial interview to get him to turn around and come back to Denver and sign a freaking deal. So there's some love there, but it's kind of an unknown at the same time because like I just mentioned, he hasn't called plays beyond a preseason game. So to see him do that either part-time, situationally, full-time, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, especially Sean Payton's kind of a control freak, so never know.
Looks like we got Nick back in here. And we're just kind of catching up on the Davis Webb interview yesterday and about if he gets a job. And as I said, I don't know exactly when he will get the job or when it will be offered, but I would not be surprised one bit if we get the news today or tomorrow at the very latest about him being the new offensive coordinator. And the big thing is will he have play calling duties?
Yeah, I obviously with the Raiders, him pulling out of that, all the Cardinal stuff dropping out here, and the Ravens, Bills all taking over for offensive coordinator positions. I'm expecting Davis Webb to be announced here pretty soon for the Broncos. And yeah, it'll be interesting to hear what they are going to do when it comes to duties and play calling specifically. I think you had mentioned maybe them switching back and forth between drives, which I don't know. That feels kind of weird. I don't know if anybody else does that in the league. So because it's such an outlier from normal protocol, I guess we'll call it. I find that hard to believe, but we'll see from what the Broncos do here with that going forward. And again, my big thought going forward, like Davis Webb, obviously the quarterback's the most important, and his relationship with Bo Nix and everything and all the young design stuff. But again, I come into it. This run game was stale this season, so it'll be good to retain Davis Webb. What are we doing to get the run game fixed up front? Because I don't know if Davis Webb fixes that. And maybe you can tie some of the run game stuff to play action looks, but it still doesn't answer the biggest schematic question for me this offseason, now that we know that Vance Joseph is going to be back.
Yeah, I mean, with the running game, obviously, I think I said this before. I think part of the issue was that they just had too much going on with it. I mean, just about any concept that you can think of was thrown in there, and there's a lot of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if part of it, if when Webb gets hired, part of it is him going over and being like, we need to cut down a little bit on what all of the concepts that we're doing, and that can help. Addition by subtraction kind of thing there. Cutting out some of the looks that or the types of runs that they really struggled with this year. But obviously, you got to get those improvements with it anyway. The execution on there, even some of the runs that the Broncos have done well over the past couple of years, they struggled with it at times this year. And that falls on, the offensive line. They weren't perfect. They had their issues, but even more so the blocking from the outside, the tight ends and the wide receivers had a little bit more issues. And then the running backs as well. I mean, there was multiple times of yardage left on the field because one of the running backs, primarily RJ Harvey, just didn't see it or was overly patient. And by the time that he got to the hole that was there, the defense was meeting him inside that hole. So I expect the news coming soon, and I'm really curious to see what else happens with that. Because obviously then you have to replace Davis Webb. Will they go bring in another person as a quarterback coach and passing game coordinator? Will just be quarterback coach? Is Ronald Curry the guy for that? He was there with Sean Payton in New Orleans. So could that be the case? So there's a lot of staff to fill out, but Davis Webb should be the first one to happen. And I'll let you take it over from here.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it happens. I don't know if you said hello to Mr. Frum coming in here. Since season over, how would you grade the Baron pick? Looking back, would you have taken someone else? I mean, obviously looking back, because we have players who played exceptionally well this season. So like did Carson Schwessinger, have they announced defensive player of the year?
Not yet, no.
Or defensive rookie of the year? Probably going to end up being Carson Schwessinger. Luther Burden looks like a future top 20 wide receiver. Nick Amanawari, I mean, you're talking about it, adding a defensive back, and he's hella unique. So, I mean, right now you probably would have to give the Barron grade a D. I mean, but it's way too early. I always kind of talk about this like in a semester, right? Like so far you've had 1/4 of the season or 1/4 of the academic year, dry up, and we didn't extract much value from the rookie contract, which for a team like the Broncos in a window right now, that's a hard sell for a first round pick. But again, you're not necessarily only drafting that player for their rookie year contribution. So it's a little bit harder with a position like cornerback because the cliff comes quickly, and you do get most of the time you get most of the value on the back end of that first contract, beginning end of that second contract, unlike offensive tackle where most of the value is honestly like very end of the rookie contract and later on. So it's always a little different. I think right now you have to give it a D, but understand that we are far from the complete grade of what this pick means for the Broncos and the franchise.
Yeah, I'd still be a little bit more optimistic. I'd probably go C- or a C, just because when he did play, it wasn't downright terrible. Like there were some really bad moments, don't get me wrong, but he also had some really highs. Like the highs were high, the lows were low, kind of thing. And obviously it was a little bit tough. And with hindsight, didn't play that much. But nobody was expecting the jump that Jaquan McMillan had this year. And it's still, I do think that he has still been a little overrated by Broncos fans. And I'm a big McMillan fan. I was a guy that as soon as he signed as an undrafted free agent, I was pointing him out as he's going to make the roster and he's eventually going to do something at least and be a good quality nickel. But nobody was expecting the jump that he had, because his play from this last year to this year significantly improved, even with some of the issues that he had. And so I think that the Barron pick also kind of sent a message to him a little bit that he needed to step it up. And he's kind of touched on that a couple times in interviews. So I'd still give it a C- and C, not just because of what Barron himself did, but because of the domino effect that it had with McMillan and the improvements that he put in, because he took that as a message to him that he needed to step up.
Yeah, I mean, he did step up. It's good. And also the Broncos this season, I mean, I think we're kind of forgetting somewhat. The Broncos had to go, 5 games without PS2, and they went undefeated in those. And who knows? Obviously, KAD was part of it as well. But cornerback is one of the positions where I think it's okay to be greedy. It's just a harder sell. So you kind of fixed your floor of the room by that, but that's not necessarily what you want with a first round pick. So I get it. But it's way too early to have a definitive grade. I've seen some takes that are way too, just overstating, I guess, in the end. So did we extract the value from the first year of the rookie contract from Barron that we hoped for? No. Like if we could have an equivalent first round pick at wide receiver, or I guess linebacker even in this one, those are 2 spots that come out to me. Tight end, we would have done that in hindsight, but those guys really weren't there for the most part. I mean, you obviously had Luther Burden, but some of these guys had questions too. So it's always easy in hindsight. And I think it's important to note the caveat that you can look at like the teams that are the best drafting teams ever and then look at their history, and like year to year, they're maybe hitting one more pick than other teams, right? Like it's not like some teams are just the most horrible drafters ever and some are the best ever. It's pretty, like the margins are so small. So I think long-term, as long as you're process driven, your results will be better more times than not, but there are no guarantees in the draft. It's one reason that I'm always such a proponent of accumulating more dart throws if possible. And I'm always a little bit skeptical of limiting the number of picks you're bringing in, because you understand that each of them is a dice roll.
Yeah. A few years ago, I went over every team's draft for like the past 10 years up to that point, and looking at what was a successful pick, what wasn't. So success measuring based off of, what they did with the team, how long they were with the team, all pros and stuff like that. And like the teams that you talk about drafting well, they were sitting about 30 to 35%. And there was less than 10 of them. There was I think 7 or 8. I can't remember exactly. This was like 5-6 years ago that I did this. And then you had the low end teams that they were drafting right around 20 to 25%. So it's a significant difference, but not a thing of like, oh, they're just hitting on every single pick and like they draft so well, like everything's perfect. Like, no, they still have their misses. And a lot of times when looking over those teams that drafted well, where were they missing a lot? They were getting more value off those back end picks compared to those front end picks, because it was graded on the curve. Like when you hit on a later round pick, it is a little bit better than when you hit on a first round pick, because you get a little bit more value out of that. And it's a little bit more of I think it's a crapshoot throughout, but the farther you get in the draft, the bigger the crapshoot it is with it, because I mean, you have those elite talents there at the top that, yeah, they don't always pan out, but so it's pretty close between the bad drafting and the good drafting teams. And I think that's something that goes a little unwavered or unnoticed, I guess would be the better way to put it. And yeah, I mean, I just think going back to Barron and the question at hand, I think that you got to look at some of the other things, some of the other picks. You mentioned Carson Schweschinger. How much would he have played really? Like if he's not seeing the field a whole lot, unless he manages to beat out Justin Strnad, which is entirely possible. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they have Alex Singleton, who they absolutely love within the building. He was going to be a starter. They have Dre Greenlaw, who they just signed to a big deal. Outside of injuries, he was going to be the starter. So it's tough, because then if Dre Greenlaw doesn't get hurt, then we're having a similar conversation with Carson Schweschinger. So opportunity also does matter when you're talking about picks and the value that they bring.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, you know what always brings value? Our friends with our first read here, Eric.
Yeah, Broncos Country Valentine's Day is almost here. How will you show yourself and those around you a little extra love? Whether it's for someone special or just for yourself, Cozy Earth makes it easy to bring comfort and care into your everyday life. This Valentine's Day season, we are offering a BOGO buy one get one pajama deal you won't see any other time of year.
Guys, check out the bamboo pajama set. It's a classic Cozy Earth favorite, and it's a sleepwear upgrade that'll make you look forward to slipping into bed at night even more. Lightweight yet cozy, this soft pajama set helps you fall asleep faster and stay comfortable longer. Designed to drape beautifully and sleep cooler than cotton, it keeps your temperature just right without overheating. It makes for a great night's sleep.
Yeah, I don't sleep very well, and I have that big issue of overheating at night. So if you have those issues, make sure you try them out. And if you don't love them, you can return them hassle-free. But trust me, you won't want to. Cozy Earth offers customers a 100-night sleep trial as well as a 10-year warranty, because once you feel this level of comfort, you will want it to last a decade.
Yeah, these viral PJs are so good. They sold out during the holidays, and now they're back with an exclusive deal only available January 25th to February 8th. So coming up soon. Head to CozyEarth.com and use our code HuddleBOGO to buy one, get one free. Get these pajamas for you and someone you love. And if you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to mention that you heard about Cozy Earth right here at MHH. Celebrate every day. Love with comfort that makes the little moments count. So shout out to them. Let's keep it rocking and rolling in here. I think you guys already got some of these ones. We got Sentinel coming in. Top of the morning to you, lads. Are you Irish, Sentinel? What's going on? Not to be a wet blanket, but why would we want to sign two divas, cancers in the locker room, AJ and Pickens? We already dealt with Judy. Why deal with it again? Well, I mean, talent is talent, and I think that this team has a pretty good locker room already, and I think there's a line to draw here. I mean, Pickens and AJ Brown. Pickens seems a little bit more of a concern to me than AJ Brown, but you're not talking about people like Tyreek Hill bringing them in. So, like, if you can have some issues and some selfishness, I think that's okay for wide receiver. I don't want to call anybody's favorite Broncos wide receiver during the Peyton Manning era out, but there was one that was in there that was notoriously sometimes problematic on off the field, maybe not there for birth of a child and stuff like that. But we love him now, and we still love him despite some of those things. And even though there was some upset feelings when the Broncos weren't as good anymore. So, I mean, we saw Michael Thomas scream. We heard about Michael Thomas screaming at practices as well, even though he'd like coming off the year where he led the league in targets. So I think you can kind of get away with some of that. Personally, I don't think Pickens is going to be even close to available. But AJ Brown, I don't know. I'm not as worried about it. Now, would I rather have, a younger player that's going to be here the next, 10, 15 years rather than Brown, who's third contract kind of guy? Yeah. But I don't have as much of an issue with Brown. And again, they're not committing crimes out there that I know of compared to some of these other wide receivers. Otherwise, they'd be being targeted by the Chiefs. So that's we got a little line here.
And on top of that, there's always when you talk about, you know, the divas and all that, there's always a tier, a leveling system for it, I guess is how I would put it, because obviously, you know, guy who takes to Twitter, X, Instagram, whatever, voicing out some frustrations, being, you know, a little non-communicative on the sideline with the coach, that's a little bit better than a guy who likes to throw punches at his coach or teammates, and that's a lot better than a guy who likes to punch women, especially when they're pregnant. And so of those, obviously Tyreek Hill, he's out. There's no place in the world for people like that, I don't think. And then you have George Pickens, which all was good there in Dallas this year. I mean, he was having a big year. There wasn't the quarterback issue that he was dealing with in Pittsburgh. Like, it's very obvious what the issue was there. We'll see if that continues. I would still much rather take, even though I think that Pickens had a great year, I would rather take the risk with AJ Brown, because his isn't as, it's not as bad to me. I mean, if you want to take to Twitter and X and, you know, be a little whine and cry, I guess, about it a little bit, or be a little non-communicative on the sideline, as long as it's not derailing things too much, all right. And from the sound of it, it sounds like it wasn't, you know, that big of an issue. He doesn't seem like he cares for Nick Sirianni. Maybe the change of coaching, sometimes change the scenery is a great thing for a player. Maybe that works with him. For a guy who's gonna, you know, you're looking at talking about a third contract player, I wouldn't mind taking the risk depending on how that contract was structured. But there's definitely levels to it. I would like somebody younger, but you never know. Even coming out of college, you never know who's going to end up being a diva or not. Because AJ Brown, there was a lot of praise for him as, you know, the football character when he was coming out of college, and so you just never know how it's going to turn out when they get to the NFL.
Yeah, and one thing I like also about AJ Brown is that if you go back to the post week 5, when did the Broncos play the Eagles? Week 5, week 4, something like that. You hear Patrick Surtain talking about covering AJ Brown, and he really impressed by AJ Brown, and like talking with him after the game as well, talking about how he's by far the strongest wide receiver he's played against. So one thing also about AJ Brown is I don't know if he's actually going to cost you a first round pick, or if he does cost you a first round pick, you might be getting back, you know, a third round pick in exchange at the same time. So there's always cost and levels to it. And again, would I rather have Justin Jefferson or Drake London? Yeah, but those guys are probably costing you multiple first round picks.
If they're even available.
If they're even available. Yes. Thank you, Eric. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out for this Broncos team. I'd also love, you know, Trey McBride or Bijan Robinson, or Broncos are going to call on a lot of big players, I'm sure. 30 overall is not necessarily a valuable chip this cycle. I mean, it's probably almost as valuable as having, like, you know, 55 overall this year, but we'll see how it plays out. And the Broncos will be aggressive. Ernie Mays, always good to see you. Money Morris says Vele should have never been let go. Does Vele even play special teams, Eric? Because you're talking about like a wide receiver 4 or 5, and would it have been good if you were in the playoff game where you were missing 2 of your top guys? Yeah, but I think the process was good to get a 4th round pick against a team that didn't look very good in a room that was pretty crowded, and for a skill set that you already had. Like, I think after the Cortland Sutton contract, it was a little bit like, okay, Vele, well, you were insurance there. We have a chance to really recoup quick value turnaround on that. And we like Franklin, Mims, Bryant more. So again, like that one game, it stinks because you're missing your 2 wide receivers. Maybe that makes a difference. I don't know if it does with the weather and how Jarrett Stidham was playing, but I don't mind the processes at all. And this is already a team, we've talked about it. If you're making a move at wide receiver, bleep or get off the pot. It needs to be like a good needle mover, not a wide receiver 3, 4, 5 type, which is what Vele obviously is.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Saints are regretting that trade as well, because he was playing poorly for them, and he ended up on injured reserve. So had that been equal, had he not been traded but he still got hurt, he wouldn't even have been available because he got hurt in week 15 and placed on injured reserve, so he would have been available for the playoffs. Vele is a fine player, but I definitely think there's a little bit of overration of him. And like he had some issues with drops last year as well, especially in the Bills playoff game, I think. And so I'm just not sure how much he would have impacted this year, as, you know, You're talking about a guy. Maybe you end up say you don't trade him. You cut Trent Sherfield instead because you have to make a move for somebody there. You're probably not going and getting Lil Jordan Humphrey, and so now you have Vele, and who knows what's going to happen there. He's probably not playing a whole lot outside of injuries, and so it's I don't know. I think Denver got the better end of the stick with the trade that they got instead of had they kept Vele.
Yeah, I don't. Unless you're moving on from Cortland Sutton, you don't need another non-special teams depth rotational piece. Like, there's value to those guys. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like in general the landscape at large you wouldn't want to have a rookie contract second string wide receiver type, but I don't really think it's super valuable for where this team is at in their current build. Unless you're moving on from Franklin or Mims, I don't imagine they move on from Pat Bryant. I did want to say hello to a few more people in here. Gatorade Gaming, good to see us. Ernie Mays is in the house. Tyler, yeah, Eric's computer freezes sometimes when it's cold up there in Alaska. I saw, I wanted to highlight our guy here, Shiloh, coming in up there in Minnesota. Appreciate you. Says props to all three of you. It's Mountain Time and Alaska time, so it's even earlier. No, I guess Eric or Dylan Pacific time, but very, very early for Eric as well. Mike Thompson's in the house. We got Jay in the house. Good to see you. John Fields is in the house as well. Good to see you. And Eric, it is just past 7:00 here, and I am starting to get hungry. Let's talk about our next sponsor.
Yeah, have you all heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where you can get the most iconic famous foods from restaurants all across the U.S., and it's perfect for game day, Valentine's Day, or anything else you have going on. Guys, this is seriously amazing. Goldbelly will ship you iconic Chicago deep dish pizza from Lou Malnati's, the original buffalo wings from Anchor Bar in Buffalo, Guy Fieri's unbelievable trash can nachos, real Philly cheesesteaks, or even legendary Franklin's barbecue straight from Texas to your door. And with Valentine's Day coming up, they also have great gifts like award-winning dinners from Peter Luger Steakhouse, world-famous macaroons from La Durée, and even the exact cake served at JFK's wedding to Jackie O.
The Philly cheesecake always catches my eye, and it's so delicious. It's always high-quality grub delivered to my door, and it always lives up to the lofty expectations I have when I order and think of the legend of the Philly cheesesteak. It was like having a culinary piece of Philly shipped to me hassle-free. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get food quality-wise from online food ordering sites, but Goldbelly absolutely delivers and tastes amazing. So whether you're looking to turn game day into an unforgettable experience with friends or want to impress a loved one with Valentine's Day just right around the corner, go to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code MileHigh. That's goldbelly.com, code MileHigh for 20% off your first order. Let's keep it rocking here. Saw Jay was in the house. Good to see you. We got Bronco Danny, the George Payton rumors, Vikings general manager search. Yeah, Eric Nick's lips are moving more than Eric's. Yeah, Eric's got a good ventriloquist thing going, but he has more stable internet than I do when I'm not right here. So we're gonna have some comeuppance with me and the missus here, I think, trying to figure out what works for this. But yeah, the George Payton stuff. You have the Vikings general manager opening now. I'm not sure what to make of it. I mean, it's kind of like a lot of these Broncos people. Unless the Broncos are okay letting them go, I can't imagine them letting him go because there's nobody that's going to out-resource or outspend the Broncos. So I'm hoping that George Payton is retained, but if he leaves, I do think they'll find somebody to make it work because you still have the infrastructure laid in place and you have obviously Sean Payton and this ownership group. So it'll be what it is. But have you heard this as well? I'm not sure. It comes from Pro Football Rumors or somebody was putting it out there about George Payton with the connections to Minnesota.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about this. And one thing is the Minnesota Vikings are not going to be hiring a new general manager until after the draft. They've already announced that they're going to be sticking with, I can't remember his name, but he was like basically the assistant general manager or their head of scouting department, something like that. Can't remember who it was. So still have a while. And here's the thing. George Payton's still under contract. He has 1 year left, and obviously there should be some negotiations there. We'll see what it is, but the Vikings can't just hire him away because it would be a lateral move. The Broncos can, block that from happening. And so what it would have to be is, just as you said, Nick, is if he wants to leave and wants that job and the Vikings want him come May, June, whenever it is that they get around to hiring their new general manager, Denver will have to okay it. And if they okay it, then probably that means Sean Payton has somebody else in mind, and maybe the work relationship between the two isn't as good as they make it out to be. But that doesn't seem to be the case. I can't imagine Sean Payton, who has talked about letting how much of a resource that George Paton is and how well they work together. I can't imagine him being okay with letting the general manager go, or Walter Penner ownership group letting him go with the work that he's done over the years. And so I don't see it happening. If it happens, maybe next year if he doesn't get an extension done, but he's still under contract, and I don't let the Broncos just letting him go.
I don't imagine it happening either. I did want to say hello to Kyle coming in here. Big day at work today. Still got the episode. Good to see you. Clayton Huron in the house as well. Thank you so much. And Eric, we got another 10 minutes or so here. I did want to give you the floor for your mock draft. If you wanted to talk about that as well here. Obviously, the Senior Bowl has come and gone, and you are sharing a brain with ESPN's Matt Miller with your first pick here in the draft. So shout out to Eric.
That means I hit my own pick now. Yeah. No, I mean, my first mock draft came out on Saturday. I submitted it on last Thursday, so it was a little bit, and it's a little bit unfortunate because the day after I picked one of the picks, Nick Singleton, I had him as the running back there in the 4th round. I ended up being a little upset hearing that he broke his foot. That definitely would impact the pick and everything, and I made it beforehand. I'd still probably go running back. I'm not sure which way I would go because there's still plenty of options available. And I probably wouldn't have gone with your guy, Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas, Nick. I just don't know if he has that extra burst for a little bit more explosives out of him. I mean, he did all right at the Senior Bowl, just taking what was given to him, but he had multiple opportunities to try to, he tried to bounce it outside one time and got chased down by a defensive lineman. He was running an outside toss, and I think he got chased down by one of the big nose tackles that they had at the game. I think it was Chris McClellan. I can't remember. I remember Chris McClellan out of Missouri had a huge game, but at this point, I can't remember who was on which team. But Mike Washington, probably would have gone him. I think if anything, I would have gone, had I known about the broken foot, I probably would have gone with the other Penn State running back because they're right about even for me on my board. But the first round pick, Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas, the linebacker. When I do a mock draft, I always use a simulator, and I always change the settings a little bit to what I feel comfortable with. And when looking over the board, there wasn't a whole lot there. We've talked about a lot. This isn't a great class. I had about 20 players that were pretty evenly ranked there. Hill just happened to be the best one that was at a major position of need at the moment, with Alex Singleton and Justin Strnad, both free agents, and the unknown factor of Dre Greenlaw. I expect him back, but what is he going to be for Denver next year with the issues that he's had? And him talking after the season about how long it took him to get the defense down. Anthony Hill, he's a great downhill player. There's some issues in coverage. I really want to see how he tests out athletically. But as the NFL is looking for linebackers, they're looking for those guys with that length and that height. And there are not many in this class, but Anthony Hill Jr. is one of them. And I wanted to give Denver that guy who could at least drop back into those shallow zone coverages and help shut down those over-under throws a little bit, or at least close that window some.
You know me, I'm always going to be a little bit positional value oriented somewhat for the Broncos. And I think Anthony Hill is a very good player. He's a unique athlete. I do wonder sometimes about the physicality between the blocks rather than, a chase and tackle kind of guy on the perimeter, which granted is a skill set the Broncos lack right now at linebacker. You saw that a bit this season. But my big question here, other than linebacker being a position that doesn't tend to have very strong correlation to the earlier the pick, the better the player. I mean, you look at like the second contracts, and a lot of them are day 2, day 3 linebackers, not really day 1. And specifically in this class, where I think you can probably wait until round 4 for the Broncos and bring in a linebacker that not going to be as good of a prospect as Hill. There'll be some limitations, but this is a exceedingly talented and deep linebacker class. So again, I'm not against Hill. I'm just playing devil's advocate. But when I see linebacker off the bat, my thought is, man, are we going to be able to get a wide receiver or a defensive tackle or something that moves the needle round 4 compared to, I really like the depth of this linebacker class in general. So again, I'm not saying it's a bad pick, Eric. I like the mock. If they took Hill, I would like it. I'd be fine. But again, the more linebackers I watch in this class, the more I'm like, oh my God, like you're going to get somebody if you wait.
Yeah, one of my issues that I have with this class, I think it's very talented. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of guys that are really good prospects, but that a lot of guys are 6 foot and are having those questions of, do they have the arm length or not? During the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, a lot of these linebackers that they had there, sub 30-inch arms or sub 31-inch arms. And when you go back and you watch them on tape, and I know you're a measurement guy, and one thing that I always do, especially with linebackers, when they like that length in particular, how much does it impact their play? 20 missed tackles this season, 25 missed tackles this season. One of them had 30 missed tackles this season, and he's a guy that's being talked about as a 3rd-round pick. So it's rough when you see it be such a consistent issue for them. That how much can you overlook that those length issues? I wasn't sure what the linebacker, obviously when you're doing this, I wasn't sure what the linebacker position would look like when I, kind of wanted to value a linebacker a little bit more, which is, 3rd, 4th round where they have 3 picks thanks to the Devon Vele trade. I just couldn't gauge it. And I figured with defensive line, great class, probably the best class in this draft is the defensive line. It's carried by nose tackles though. And so I really going into it, I really wanted to get a defensive lineman with that first pick. Cause I think for the, if you're looking for somebody to replace that John Frankenmeyer's type, it's not great. It's carried by the nose tackles, but the guys that I looked there at that 30th overall pick, they were all gone off the board. The couple wide receivers that I was looking there at that pick, they were all off the board. And so it was like, all right, where do I want to go with this? I know a lot of Broncos country wants Kenyon Sadiq. He was gone. There was some interior offensive. There's a couple, like 2 interior offensive linemen, not the Penn State guy. So I just went. I went with who was the best player left for me. And you mentioned his downhill between the tackles thing. I was a little bit okay with that because after the playoff games, they seem very content to let Dre Greenlaw work between the tackles. They just had issues with him outside the tackles and in coverage, which is why that they started rotating him with Justin Strnad. Justin Strnad was coming in on obvious, past situations. He was the covering guy. Dre Greenlaw was working a little bit between the tackles, and he was becoming more of that stack linebacker and allowing Alex Singleton to kind of be that more of that roamer, chase ball, see ball kind of linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a position where it'd be nice to get a little bit more athleticism in general. We'll see what the Broncos do in free agency. Obviously, where they spend money would change this as well because linebacker isn't typically a rotational position. So if let's say you go out there and spend decent on, I don't know, I saw Devin Lloyd is going to walk because he's looking for $25 million a year. Pass for me on that one. I just don't want to spend that much on a linebacker personally. But no, yeah, he's a good. He's definitely in play for the Broncos. Where are you at between Anthony Hill? Obviously, Sonny Styles is going to be long gone. But where are you at between Anthony Hill and CJ Allen?
I am not a CJ Allen guy whatsoever. Okay. He is one of those guys where that lack of length shows up repeatedly when you watch his tape, both as a tackler and in coverage. I think if you're talking about him round 2, like later round 2 after pick 50, all right, I can see it, but I don't think he has any business right now being around it unless he goes out there and tests stupidly athletic. He's not a round 1 guy for me.
Okay, and then what about somebody who's been getting some top 40 love is Cincinnati's Golladay as well. I know Golladay. I know in the NFL Stock Exchange mock draft, it went pretty well for the Broncos. They got Kenyon Sadiq at 30, and then they ended up taking Golladay at 62 in this cycle. So he's somebody that's also, and I know a lot of fans of Malcolm Rodriguez and how he looked. Anybody else that you're talking about there with let's talk. Round 2, round 3 for a linebacker is a premium expenditure, in my opinion. Obviously, round 1 is. But is there anybody else day 2 that really stands out to you right now?
I have no idea where he's gonna go, but bringing Senior Bowl stuff into it, Kyle Lewis out of Pittsburgh. So you mentioned CJ Allen, where the length is an issue. Golladay, he's a guy that I think is 40, but he is right behind Anthony Hill for me. He was also available, but I just liked Anthony Hill a little bit more. And then Jacob Rodriguez, the Texas Tech Raider linebacker. He's another one where the lack of length, it shows up. It showed up multiple times during the Senior Bowl week practices as well. And so I was doing this while watching, just after watching all 30 days of practice. So maybe that was sitting fresh on my mind a little bit, but I was having a little bit of issues with the lack of length there. And then Kyle Lewis, 5'11", 224 pounds. But when I turned on his tape, I caught him after the first 2 days of Senior Bowl practices and finally got around and turned on his tape that night after that second day. And you do not see that lack of length be an issue. And I was really surprised at how well he did. You know, you see a guy linebacker 220 to 225 pounds, miss tackles. There are some on tape, but not as many as you'd expect for a guy that small. He doesn't get out physicaled by tight ends or running backs. And one thing too, and like I noticed this in the Senior Bowl practice on the third day, there was a red zone period that they did where they had where they ran 6 or 7 plays, all attacking the middle of the field. And Kyle Lewis had 2 interceptions, 2 passes broken up, a forced fumble, and another one where he just had great coverage and the quarterback ended up throwing it over the head of the tight end that he was covering. Like, it was an unbelievable sequence for him. So I think that he's definitely helped himself probably into that day 2 conversation. And if you want to talk about a smaller linebacker where the length isn't an issue, where that lack of size isn't an issue, he is one that really stands out for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of good linebackers in this class for the Broncos to pick. So we'll see what happens. Mike says he likes your mock draft. Hope he was getting linebacker last season. We'll see how it plays out. DTF asked, what do you guys think about the Chiefs moving to Kansas? I think it's a little bit of a poverty move to make. It's, what is it called? I'm going to get in trouble for this one. Socialize the costs and privatize the profits. I shout out to the Broncos ownership for funding the stadium themselves. And if you're not doing that, I think your ownership group is a bunch of losers. So that's screw them and the Chiefs. And and we'll see the long-term economic impacts, I guess. But I think it's dumb. And we might have issues with some Walmart practices or whatever, but shout out to them for privately funding the stadium, because I think it's beyond stupid to put it on taxpayers to do that. So that's my opinion on that. I
put it a lot nicer than I would have.
Yeah. I just think it's a travesty. I don't think they should be able to do that, but it is what it is. And that's probably enough said about that. Moving on with your pick, here's Eric. Next to day 2 for the Broncos, I'm getting 2 weapons: Elijah Surratt from Indiana and Justin Jolie. Yep. Jolie. So we can sing the Dolly Parton song if they draft him. Maybe every catch they we can go. This guy, you have to change it a little bit, of course. But Jolie, those would be good for me. I have a hot take for you, Eric. Right now, I don't think it will happen. But right now, if there are odds about which Indiana wide receiver goes first, I might put money on Omar Cooper just because he's more explosive. And right now, I think the odds would favor Surratt. But I think Cooper's just overall explosiveness is more interesting. And here's even a tougher take. I think Surratt's great. He might be, as far as NFL player, the 3rd best wide receiver on that roster. Because you got Becker, who unbelievable down the second half of the season as well. So I like Surratt. I just wanted to toss a little bit of love, because when I watch Cooper, I'm like, oh, buddy, there's something here to this one.
Yeah, and Cooper was gone.
Oh, he was gone. Okay.
He was gone. So you're sitting there saying it's a hot take. I'm like, everything I've seen has Cooper
over him,
borderline a top 50 pick. There's a lot of love for him.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, there's a couple receivers that I was looking at, and it came down to, I think there was 3 available. I can't remember for sure. Again, I started doing this last Wednesday, Thursday, and Surratt, I think he's a really good fit with what the Broncos need, which is why I went that way. He offers up some good yards after the catch. Almost 40% of his yards were he got after the catch. He's got a pretty good route tree. Hands are reliable. He's a decent enough blocker. And there's other guys that might have been a little bit more of a threat in that receiving ability, but they're just absolute dog water when you look at them as a blocker. And so Surratt was just that combination of skills. And he's the guy that I've heard probably early day 3. But I wasn't doing trade downs. And again, I just valued the more roundedness to his game than you get with some of the other ones. And I've heard a couple people talk about him that they like him with the new NFL kickoff rules. They like him as a returner as well. And the Broncos could definitely use that second returner. They're rotating guys opposite Marvin Mims on kickoffs because they couldn't find anybody there. RJ Harvey had that mind-numbingly stupid mistake against the Giants, and then Tyler Bidet they did whatever they could to make sure he wasn't returning it, and when he did, he didn't do a great job at it. So I think I just went with somebody who had that roundedness of skills with him a little bit early. And then Justin Jolie, part of it was I went with the tight end there because I knew that if I didn't, the pitchforks and torches would definitely come out for me with how much screaming there is. But he is a receiver only. He is that mismatch weapon, and I don't think that he's not a great blocker even in the slot. He can do enough, but he's not a guy that can be a difference. I think you would just get better value out of a bigger wide receiver there, out of him, which is something that you and I have talked about. But went with tight end partially because I knew that it would be a lot. And then I'm also looking at him as post Evan Ingram life. Evan Ingram definitely looked a little bit slow, and they need more receiving ability out of that tight end room still. And Justin Jolie, that is something that he is probably one of the better pure receiving tight ends in this class.
I'm going to have to get on my soapbox again a little bit, but tight end, now you're talking the end of round 3. I am just so out on tight ends that don't bring blocking ability because they do not influence coverage. And we saw what a detriment that was from the blocking scheme for the Broncos this season. Running games in general are first to fail systems, right? Like a perfectly executed run block design is, poetry in motion, synchronized swimming. I mean, it's glorious to watch, but if one person doesn't execute, the whole thing crumbles. And we saw that time and time again this season from the Broncos at tight end with non-Nate Atkins blockers. So Jolie, if he tests incredibly well, that's great. But I keep coming back to it. If you are a big athlete tight end, but you don't influence coverage and personnel like a tight end does, they treat you like a wide receiver. I'm grading you as a wide receiver. Yeah. Are you actually a better athlete than a wide receiver out there? Because I'm getting the same impact from how I'm dictating coverage and personnel. So again, I think I'd probably rather go who was the Jackson Hawes route? Like, just give me the meanest mofo in this class with length. So that way he's not just, an H-back move blocker, but I need somebody who can be in line, ideally, and go from there. But that's just me. That's kind of a philosophy for team building. Obviously, you have guys that are useful as wide receivers or H-back, fullback types, kind of like what Harold Fannin was utilized this season. But I think that guy is niche, ornamental, if you will, if you don't have the Y tight end as well to play off of. So I'm not against Jolie down this far, but is there somebody who's just a big, mean, physical athlete that maybe you can develop into more of a pass catcher down the line? Because tight ends and linebackers, two of the largest learning curves in the league, and you have to be a special mover for me to overlook the lack of blocking.
Yeah, and with that pick, I wanted a tight end there, and that's kind of where I was going at it. I really wanted to go Sam Roush out of Stanford. But until he tests, I'm just not sure he's a top 100 player at this point. I think I do have Jolie as a little bit better, even higher graded, even though he doesn't offer that blocking. Sam Roush does. And then with Sam Roush, you just got to put in a lot of work with the hands. He had 7 drops on under 30 targets or under 30 catches, I think. 49, 80 targets, 7 drops. And man, going back to the Senior Bowl real quick, in that game, he probably added another 3, and they were simple, easy catches. So you definitely have to put the work in there. That was where I really wanted to go because he is one of the better blocking tight ends. And he is, when you're talking about this tight end class, I'll said it before, I'll say it again. You really got to separate. You have your receivers, you have your blockers, and there are very few in between. he is one of those that is in between. He does offer up enough as a receiver. He is a really good blocker, probably top 3 in college football last year. And like, he's just that good. When watching him, he looks a little clunky when he is working as a receiver, especially when he's, changing directions, kind of rounds it out, doesn't crisp off those breaks a little bit, even for a tight end. Very, very Albert Okwuegbunam with the route running aspect of it, which is how rough that was. So as things stand right now, I just wasn't comfortable putting him there, even though I think, honestly, that's probably where I would, if you test that well, that is where I would want to go. Just because that blocking, and then other tight ends, there just wasn't any blockers, anybody that was blocking available that I felt comfortable there, even if it was a slight hit to the receiving, and so ended up on Jolie.
The thing about Jolie is weird is he's listed 260, so like you think he would have.
He came in sub 250, I think, at the Senior Bowl.
Okay, all right. I'm looking at PFS Big Roar right now, and they say 263. So I'm like, whoa, that doesn't really match the movement, the skills there. But I'm really interested in still. I think I mentioned him on here before, but Eli Raridon. I know he's had 2 ACL injuries, and he didn't catch a touchdown this year, but 6'7", 250, and I think he blocks pretty well overall. And now is he going to be dynamic? No, but I think he can actually hang in line. And I still like the athlete that Oscar Delp is as a blocker. And then we also got Riley Norakowski, who's more fullback tight end type, but I just love how you could weaponize him in the run game in general. Does that make Nate Atkins expendable? Maybe, but I'm just looking for different weapons. And we're talking niche, ornamental players, but that's what you're talking about down there. And the rest of your draft, Eric, you start to hit some of the trenches there as well. I'll be curious to see if the Ratledge makes it that far. Seems like coming out of the Senior Bowl, he's being talked about top 100. I know you sent this before. That happens. So we have more information now, but overall, it's a really good mock draft. So I encourage you guys to head over to Mile High Huddle and check it out. And just some programming notes for everybody here as well. We will be gone on Friday. It is Eric's most important person in the world's birthday.
Third.
Okay, I didn't know I was that high. No, actually,
Eric's
mom's birthday, but it's also my birthday as well. So my parents are going to be here, and we're going to be gone. So enjoy Friday, folks. We got Michael coming in the super chat. Eric, any offensive linemen to watch out for in the 2026 NFL draft? A lot. I will take right now, I'm already ready to pound the table. It's kind of the Amarius Mims take, Eric, if you will. But for me, I think I put out a tweet yesterday, like a top 5 to 10 offensive line is the standard for this team going forward. And the only way you do that is if you're probably investing in the position. And it's kind of like talking out of both sides of my mouth. Like Barron, you didn't extract much value on the rookie deal year 1. But if there's an offensive tackle you love at 30 overall and you haven't traded the pick, there's not a weapon or a defensive lineman that makes sense, an offensive tackle is not the worst place you can go, because I don't know if you have a quality backup offensive tackle right now. Like Palczewski's admirable. That's the word I'll keep using out there. We saw Parrott this season struggle at guard, but you just don't have somebody in the works right now. And I'm going to butcher his name every time, but Max from Arizona State. Oh my goodness. He is huge, mean, moves very well, and still pretty raw to football. And he's like the perfect, we're in a somewhat of a luxury position, but we have a chance to draft a decade-long starter here. Mike McGlinchey's contract's easy to move on from after 2026 as well. Who knows about the future of Garrett Bowles? So that's one that I'm not going to mispronounce his last name, but Max from Arizona State. I wouldn't be surprised if he's off the board before when the Broncos pick, because tackles are so valuable. But he's one that I come away like being like, oh yeah, heck yeah, I would take him, no doubt, depending on circumstances at 30.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how he pronounced his last name. It was Ihenakor, I think is how it was. Ihenakor, something like that. But yeah, I mean, there will be a mock draft here soon that not super soon, but relatively soon, that definitely has him as that 30th overall pick for Denver. They were just touching on throughout the Senior Bowl week how light he is on his feet, how well he moves, the athleticism, but he's got some serious power to his game as well. Like when you talk about having everything and it just oozing from him, that is him. It just oozes out of him, all this ability. And it's not like he's with Mims, you had that conversation of, well, how was he as a football player? There's still a lot of development there that he needed as a football player, that with the techniques and everything. And this guy, he's not near as bad as Mims was. And in a down class, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes top 20, being one of the first tackles taken in this class, because of just how much there is to work with and develop with the movement, the light feet. Mike Mayock, he always had that dancing bear, and this guy's a dancing bear. Like, he's so big, 325 pounds, 6'6", 6'7". Long arms. I think he had the longest arms at the Senior Bowl, or up there for the longest arms at the Senior Bowl. He's just absolutely fantastic from day one all the way through the game. And I saw somebody, I can't remember who was talking about it, where he was being advised not to even play in the game because of how strong of a week he had. Because that's what a lot of players do. Go out there, have a big week, don't play in the game. And he just loves the game that much that he went out there and he played in that game and absolutely killed it. He did he pancaked somebody and did the whole extra, I'm just going to fall on you just to be sure kind of thing on it, which made me laugh. And man, and he's another thing with offensive linemen, punish jumpers, and man, does he punish jumpers.
Yeah, he is definitely a fun player. We'll see what happens with Powers this offseason as well. Kind of, I'm not expecting Powers or Jones to be moved on from, but their contracts are ones where it's like, okay, well, we have to at least like see that they went through holding on to both those guys, because that is a decision to make. So yeah, we're going to get on out of here. I mean, obviously there's the Utah guys. It does seem like Fano won't be available, but maybe Lomu is. Monroe Freeling from Georgia stands out. And then you got some kind of further down guys. I know there's some big fans for like Brian Parker out of Duke. He'll probably move inside. Same with Caleb Tiernan from Northwestern, although I worry about the 6'7" frame on the interior, but that's just me. And then some interior guys, obviously, got the two Iowa guys, Jennings Dunker and Bo Stevens, had decent weeks down at the combine. I do think Jennings Dunker's personality and aesthetic is probably outpaced his play on the field somewhat, because I'm hearing first round, and I don't think I love him, love the dude, but you're probably talking more so if he went before pick 50, I'd be surprised, I guess. But we'll see. Teams need offensive linemen, and he's built the right way mentality-wise. So we'll see. We got Patrick coming in here drinking the coffee. Good to see you, Patrick. Aloha, boys, and we're going to get on out. So we'll see you again next Monday, folks, since we'll be off for Eric's favorite person's birthday, as well as his mom's. Yeah, it's always good to see everybody. Shout out to Eric for the mock draft. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at Eric Trickle. I'm at Nick Kendall MHH. Also following Dylan Von Arks at Dylan Von Arks MHH. We're over at X Twitter at Mile High Huddle. Also Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as the ticker says underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. We're going to get on out of here. Shout out to everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Have a good week. I apologize for the groundhog seeing his shadow, although 6 more weeks of winter would mean having 6 weeks of winter to begin with, given what's going on here with the snowpack and everything out in this side of the Mississippi River. But I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, Eric. Hope you have a good rest of your week. Give your best to my mother, or to your mother. Give my best to my mother. My mother will be out here. So that'll be fun as well. And yeah, we'll see everybody on Monday. Any final thoughts, Eric?
No, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Stay safe. And as I always say, even though it'd be really early to be doing this, don't drink and drive.
And let's go Seahawks. Sorry, Eric, for your wife's sake as well. But
for my wife's sake, go Seahawks.
Yeah, go see. You said you might be listening. So let's go Seahawks. Bye, everyone. Peace.